So I thought it'd be good. Some of you are more familiar with our story than others, and I thought it would be good just to kind of talk through the progression of what I've experienced over the last 8 years and here, and um, what some people may not know too is that I was actually here for 7 years, starting in about 2005, and then left in about 2011 and was head of school in Minnesota for 5 years. That's where I ran into Simon originally, and then came back as the head of school here in about 2016. So I've had a couple of different stints, but it gives me a greater deal of longevity with this institution than maybe my 8 years would indicate. Our story is that we were a very, very typical parent-run school. Our value proposition was achieved by depressed cost, which meant we provided a product that everyone could afford and nobody wanted. So that was not good, and it was a difficult way to operate it. We had no mature systems in terms of no functioning development program, no functioning. We had no admissions director. Nobody had any ownership of admissions, and our marketing was very shotgun, sporadic, and frankly pretty incoherent. The school had never had a strategic plan, and it actually failed multiple times trying to get strategic plans approved by the board because its dysfunction in turn created further dysfunction within the organization. 8 years ago, we had empty seats, no waiting lists. And I would say that we had, but still, some pockets of excellence. Our enrollment at that time was just a little bit over 900. So there were some good things going on. There's not a lot of competition in this area, but those pockets of excellence were enough to kind of keep people here. There was families that were certainly loyal to the product here, but we had a lot of pockets of problems too. So just a very, very inconsistent experience for our customers. And then in my first year, in fact, I think maybe Jenny knows this, Simon certainly does, but I did not take this job as a condition of the contract. I would not take the job unless we had a first year strategic health check and strategic plan, and that we would invest highly in that, and that we would commit to something, or I wasn't going to take the job, and I certainly wasn't going to continue in the seat without some help and direction. And so we started with that institutional health check, which I think is important. Sometimes people want to run directly to strategic planning and strategize their way out of problems, but sometimes you have to actually understand what your problems are. Mm-hmm. So what is the baseline? Where are you actually at from an institutional standpoint? Because we didn't know what we didn't know as an institution. And frankly, the first thing that we needed before strategy is just knowledge of what should we be doing? What are the best practices when it comes to governance and all of these issues of Christian education? And then that helped create a lot of urgency, because, when we hired Simon, we understood that we were going to get a very compassionate and caring and soft-hearted consultant. No, Simon punched us in the nose, and that's exactly what we need. Now, Simon is those things, and he brought that. I don't want Simon to have his feelings hurt, because he is extremely caring, but we needed an immense amount of directness to shock us into really a different way of thinking about running the business, running the mission, developing programming here at Des Moines Christian School. And of course, Simon delivered in spades. And then a few months later, we started in on the strategic plan. And that just helped us obviously develop our KPIs, understand what direction we're going. A lot of our goals early on were governance related. We were actually in a fairly good financial situation. That was probably our biggest attribute at that time. Enrollment, demand, programming, governance were all areas that were huge work in progress. And so we jumped right into the governance changes, trying to change that parent-run mindset, get into more of a mission-based, self-perpetuating governance structure. That eventually would take 5 years to codify into new bylaws. That was a long process, and it needed to be a long process because we needed to make sure that that's the direction that we wanted to go, but we knew it was critical. But from the behavioral standpoint, we started acting like a mission-based, self-perpetuating governance model immediately after Simon left. So we wouldn't codify those into kind of the code of the school until 5 years later, but the behavioral changes started immediately. And we also started to then focus on value, not cost, and how do we increase our value proposition. Really looked at marketing that was exclusively internal and that essentially just shouted our mission and tried to give evidence of when mission effectiveness was taking place. We developed a philosophy that we never get to call ourselves excellent. We never get to call ourselves good. But when people tell us that we're accomplishing our mission or tell us that we're excellent, we are going to repeat that ad nauseum. So we will shout that from the rooftops, but we will never in any of our communications say that our value proposition is good or that we're effective or anything. But as soon as a customer says it, we will repeat it. And so we just started with that philosophy. The results were immediate. Enrollment has increased every year. The first waiting list and started at our entry points, and that started popping up about 5 years ago. And now we have waiting lists across the board and very, very deep waiting pools. So last year, inquiries were in the thousands. We have a formal waiting pool that's still probably around 1,000, maybe a little over that. And so the demand has been kind of off the charts. So you can imagine people are people. And so we went from concerns around, effectiveness, can we actually run this business? Cade, are you going to run the business into the ground by increasing tuition above inflation every year? And all of these question marks, and are we really going anywhere, to now we're concerned about growth. So we went from one extreme to the other in a very, very short amount of time. And then it's like, how do we protect what we have? We have this wonderful thing, and it's always, it's always been wonderful. It hasn't, but it's always been wonderful because our attention spans are very short, and now we don't want to lose that. And so we've had to address that. And the first thing that I had to do is really visit with our board and convince them that we needed to address this significant demand in one of two ways. And I think there might be some that would disagree with this, but this is the approach that I took, in that I just said we can really steward this demand in one of two ways. First of all, I think it's bad business. I think it's bad stewardship to just not do anything about this demand and just let it sit there. So we need to go either one of two directions. We need to raise tuition significantly and become a different type of institution and take care of demand through pricing. Or we need to stay the course and we need to create more capacity. And when our board considered our articles of incorporation, kind of our ethos, their response was, we need to create more seats. We need to continue to meet the needs of our community. And so that was an important first step to actually commit to growth. The second group, which I think sometimes maybe gets lost, and I know that I've made this mistake 1,000 times in my career, is that you want to communicate with people, but often you forget to communicate with your faculty and staff. And they're kind of your, direct market salespeople that are touching the customers every day. And so we had to start having these conversations with them. Hey, there's a couple of paths we can take. This is where our board has directed us. This is our passion. This is what we think we should do. We're going to take care of you. We want you to come along on this journey with us. There's tremendous opportunities. Yes, there are risks, but our mission and these opportunities, the times demand it. And we think we need to rise to the occasion, and you're the people to do it with us. And so we started to message that to our faculty and staff. and then a little bit more to our parents. Now, the most common concern that we have had, and this probably won't surprise you, but it was people concerned about losing our culture. So will scale cause us to lose our culture and who we are? And so we have a really wise board member, and he's gone through the process of scaling a business significantly from him as a founder to about 100 employees now. And he said, Cade, one of the things that we did really early on, because we got that feedback as well, is we had to define what our culture is. And so that was so wise. And I actually then started to respond to that kind of question or criticism with a question, and that is, what is our culture? What would you say is our culture? What are you afraid of losing? Define that for me. And so that was really helpful to us. And of course, we doubled down on our mission, our portrait of graduates, and our portrait of professional excellence, and to really communicate those and to make those a part of our culture. The one thing that my leadership team was really insistent on, I was very late to the party. I'm still not convinced that we could have done this maybe a little differently, but I felt like I needed to flex a little bit to help them move along, but they really wanted to develop some values as well. I felt like those are present in our mission. I felt like those were present in the portrait of the graduate and the portrait of professional excellence, but they really wanted to make those very overt. And so I relented, and I think ultimately it was a really good decision because it really summarized the expression of our mission going between our portrait of a graduate and portrait of professional excellence. And so we came up with three really simple things. We define our culture as growing with Christ, community in Christ, and loving like Christ. And so that is what we define really when people ask about what is our culture. That's what we hear from our families. And that's not something that we went into a room and said, what do we want to be when we grow up? What do we want our culture to be? We just simply ask the question, what is our culture? How does our community define us today? And how can we assure them that we're going to double down and make sure that those values and that culture is perpetuated no matter what the size of the school is? And so that was, I think, a really critical step. And we continue to do work in communication and marketing around those three areas. The other opportunity that we had is, and I'm going to put it in the chat, but we celebrated our 75th anniversary last year. And so we go through the history of the school in this video, and I have a speaking part towards the end. But one of the things that really struck me about diving into this organization or this institution's history is that we've never been defined by a single campus. The school has existed in multiple locations. We've never been defined by an enrollment number. We've never been defined by a certain head of school. We've never been defined by all of those things that sometimes people grasp onto. Oh, we really like the one campus, or we really like being this size, or we really like this location, or we just simply said we have always been defined by our mission of equipping minds and nurturing hearts to impact the world for Christ. And that will not change. Wherever this mission happens, in whatever context, that is the constant. That has been the constant for 75 years. And Lord willing, that will be the constant as we move toward this next generation as well. And so I think that was really helpful for people to see that, while most of our families only know Des Moines Christian on this campus, it has definitely, that this is not the majority of our history. This is just the most recent expression of the mystery, and they've experienced it here, but we needed them to be able to see that. The other thing is that we really leveraged our surveying to come back and show people that it's really about the mission and mission effectiveness. So in our surveys that we give every other year, the question is always on there: is Des Moines Christian too small, just right, or too big? And guess what that survey comes back every year as the overwhelming majority answer, even though our enrollment has gone from 900 to 1450 next year. Guess what the answer always is? Just right. And so just to reaffirm to them, we have been in a growth pattern. You just haven't noticed it, but we have been growing every year. And our goal, I think, if we continue to deliver on our mission, you actually don't care what the size is. You care what the impact is on your child. And that is what we will commit to, whether we have one student or 2,000 students. We will continue to focus on that. Our next steps. The other thing too is, again, I don't know if this is right or wrong or indifferent, but it's just a posture that I've taken. And because I get this question all the time, Cade, how big do you want the school to be? And my response is, don't care. I don't care. It's not even the right question. My focus is on how are we delivering the mission into the lives of children each and every day? And is there demand for our product that we can accommodate in a reasonable way? Is it reasonable for us to continue to do that? And so that's what I continue to bring people back to is, do I want the school to be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 500? That it's not the point. The point is, for us to deliver the mission and then to survey the landscape and see if there are opportunities to bring more people into the fold if they demand Christian education at Des Moines Christian School. And our next steps, which really a lot of them have been happening through our recommitment to our strategic planning process, but we want to continue to build our strategic plan and our strategic financial management on mission effectiveness. Now, those documents have also assumed some growth because we are growing and the demand is so overwhelming that we're not just hoping for new students. Those new students exist. We know their names. We have their contact information. We have their commitments. And so it's just a matter of, can we create additional seats for them? But a dynamic situation where, yes, we're focused on increased effectiveness to the mission, but it would be foolish not to incorporate some growth into our strategic plan and strategic financial management. And so, but at the same time, continue with that message to our staff and our community that our primary focus is on getting better, not bigger. Bigger is just happening, I think, as a result of getting better. But the first focus is always on getting better. The other thing that we've talked a lot about, and many of you have probably read Jim Collins' follow-up book to Good to Great, How the Mighty Fall. And so one of the concepts of that book is that as organizations grow and have success, there is a tendency to focus on things outside of what he would call the flywheel, outside of the core industry of that organization. And Collins implores organizations to continue to put as much effort towards your core industry as your innovative other things that you're moving towards. And so for us, expansion could be a distraction. Expansion could be a focus, and we've made a commitment that we have to keep putting as much energy as we have over the last 8 years towards our flywheel, towards our core part of our process and our product that we do for growth. And so there's going to be some growing pains with that, but I think that's an important commitment as we move forward. And then we have to continue to market the mission and mission effectiveness. It would be really easy for us to get our identity in growth or to put all of our eggs in kind of the growth basket and to start to develop a new vision and identity that's based on who we are who we're going to become, not just who we are. And I think we have to be really careful to continue to market who we are today and inform about the growth and inform about the new things, but that's not what we're marketing. Because frankly, I don't control all those variables. We're going to try to build a new campus. That sucker is going to be $70 million minimum. You know how much money I have raised right now? 0 for that. We don't have any guarantees that we can actually deliver on that. Now, we have to continue to inform people about our intention, but that's not who we are. who we are is the mission, the community, our values, all of those things, and to keep people focused on that. So we're trying to invest in the future, but also hold that future very lightly. Because that, again, is not who we are. It's just an opportunity that God has in front of us that we are trying to move into. And like I said, the big thing is to just maintain that identity and that focus on equipping minds and nurturing hearts to impact the world for Christ, and to market that internally and externally over and over and over and over again. And I will say that thus far, our community has really been hanging with us. I would say there are concerns about growth, but there's also a lot of excitement around it as well. And so I think we're in a pretty good spot. As you know, working in schools, that could change tomorrow. I don't know, but we've certainly put a lot of effort and energy into that. And we're hoping that with each step, we'll continue to bring our community along one step at a time until God either closes doors or opens doors and provides different opportunities for our future.